Hey guys, welcome back to Beat of the Soul. I hope you're well. On the Record presents the powerful and haunting story of music executive Drew Dixon as she grapples with her decision to become one of the first women of colour in the wake of Me Too to come forward and publicly name hip-hop mogul Russell Simmons of sexual assaults. The documentary chronicles not only Dixon's story, but that of several other accusers. The opening of the documentary was really creative. The graphic design was sick. There's a moving record in the background as we see the opening credits. In the opening of the documentary, one of the ladies says, America picks and chooses who they're going to listen to. Not only does class have an indicator, but what a person looks like has an indicator. This is so true, not just for America, but many other countries. I want to expand on what she said about a person's appearance affecting whether or not they'll be listened to. I believe colorism is also an indicator. It's more likely that a lighter person would be listened to over a darker person. I also think pretty privilege affects whether people are listened to or not. This is toxic. The attractiveness of a person shouldn't affect whether or not you believe their story. It reminds me of when people say, if you're going to be supportive of and protect black women, that includes all black women. So women who are gay, straight, attractive, unattractive, masculine presenting, feminine presenting, able, disabled, trans, cis, etc. Height and body composition are also indicators. Think of the Megan Thee Stallion situation. It's not related to sexual assault, but she was shot by Tory Lanez. Megan is tall and curvy, and Tory Lanez is short. People were trying to discredit Megan's story because of her height and body composition. If she was shorter than Tory Lanez and thin, it's more likely that people would believe her. All of these different indicators create different perceptions and associations in people's minds, thus affect whether or not they listen. The woman in the documentary then goes on to say, who we decide to listen to is totally predicated on who we see as valuable in America. I thought this was so powerful but sad at the same time, because then you start to think about how many people are ignored because of things they can't help. Music was a language that Drew spoke. She listened to everything from the Doors to the Beatles to Prince to jazz. Her mum was a big Billie Holiday fan, so she consumed a lot of her music. She would stay up in the middle of the night and organise her mum's albums in the living room floor, and she would play the songs in order on a record player and chase the fades. Hip-hop appealed to her as it was a black movement that was empowering people who were lost and overlooked. She grew up in Black DC, knocking on doors trying to convert voters. For Drew, hip-hop combined two things that she loved: activism and a sense of pride with music. She thought the two could change the world. As she's talking, the background music in the documentary builds suspense, so you know that something big or bad is coming. Drew's mum was elected mayor of DC, and Drew picked the artist for her inauguration. She picked Go-Go Band, Rare Essence, Kwame, and Big Daddy Kane. As she was picking these artists, she interacted with people behind the scenes, and it occurred to her that there were various jobs in the music industry that aren't the artists, but make it all happen. She discovered what A&R was and how it involved discovering new artists and making songs. Drew got her start in the industry by answering phones at various companies from Jive Records to Warner Brothers Records. She then became a publishing exec at Zombie Music Publishing. Later, Drew went on to work for Russell Simmons doing A&R at legendary label Def Jam. Leo was president of the label on Drew's first day at Def Jam. One day, he called her into the office and said, I don't know who the F-U-C-K you are, but I don't have time for any of Russell's tall, skinny B-I-T-C-H-E-S's. So this is what I want you to do. If you see me in the building, if you see me in the hallway, find the nearest open office, the nearest open door, go into it and hide. Because I don't want to F-U-C-K-I-N-G see any tall, skinny B-I-T-C-H-E-S's or friends of Russell's. Got it? Got it, tall, skinny? And Drew was like, got it. Imagine being spoken to like that. And the gag is, she wasn't even one of the women Russell was dealing with. So disrespectful. I think I would even go home and cry. Like, no one should be spoken to like that in a place of work or even outside of work. It's just so disrespectful and uncalled for. Drew said there was a perception that she had a certain kind of relationship with Russell, And by that, I'm assuming she means sexual relationship. I hate that when a woman works closely with a man, people begin to assume that their relationship goes beyond work. It's disgusting and it's rooted in misogyny. For all we know, Drew could have been gay or asexual. Drew worked hard to be director of A&R at Def Jam. She tried to get Russell's full attention by communicating with Russell's driver to see where he would be. I know certain people are probably going to hear this and put the blame on Drew for her assault because she did this, and put the blame on her for her rape as well, and be like she was doing this because she was giving Russell signals, etc. But the blame should not be put on her. When Russell was inappropriate with Drew, she thought that she had proven herself and that she was too valuable for Russell to burn the bridge, as she was an executive with value. So she thought Russell would leave her alone, but he didn't. Drew put together a soundtrack for a hip-hop documentary named The Show. This was a daunting task, as Drew would have had to work within a budget and do sophisticated deals to license songs. She would have had to deal with artists and their representatives. Drew had great artists on that soundtrack, and she even put Def Jam onto Bone Thugs and Harmony, who were not known at that time. She was also responsible for the collaboration between Method Man and Redman on a song called How High. Drew was responsible for Method Man featuring Mary J. Blige, You're All I Need to Get By. She heard an interlude when Method Man's album was being made. The interlude was a Method Man a cappella saying, "Shorty, I'm there for you anytime you need me, for real girl, it's me in your world, believe me." Drew heard this and thought it was dope and likened it to a hip-hop sonnet. She told Russell that this should be a song and not an interlude, and that it should be a duet. She suggested Mary J. Blige for the feature, and Diddy came up with the idea of having Mary J. Blige sing You're All I Need to Get By, with Method Man rapping over her, and that's how the song came to be. Without Drew, this collaboration wouldn't have happened. The record even won a Grammy. Hearing Drew's story makes you think about how many more legendary women there are behind the scenes that we don't know about. It was said in the documentary that there's a lot of mobility for women in the music industry if you have talent and a great work ethic, but there is a lot of sexual harassment that's embedded in the culture. If men were sexist, there was not a lot of sympathy for women, and it was considered the price of the job. This is very toxic, and phrases like "that just comes with the territory" and "suck it up" are very damaging in these circumstances, as it justifies the terrible acts. Just because it's a part of the culture and has been for years doesn't make it right. The sexual harassment culture in the music industry needs to be dismantled. Make sure you guys watch the documentary in order to hear the details of Drew's story. It's sad to hear Drew say that as a black woman she felt like she couldn't come forward and share her story. You then have to ask yourself, why would she feel that way? The Me Too movement is white dominated, even though it was founded by a black woman. There is nothing wrong with non-black women who are survivors of sexual assault and rape coming forward with their stories, but the problem occurs when black women's stories get swept under the rug. Drew continued going to work after her rape, but then she submitted a resignation, and Russell asked her if she wanted more money or if she wanted to be vice president. Then Lior was like, "Stop talking, let her go." This is just heartbreaking. It's horrible that Drew had to go through this. God knows how this still must affect her today. She was such an asset to Def Jam in the music industry. Just imagine what other amazing music we would have heard if this didn't happen. Drew said for 22 years she took it for the team. She said she wanted Russell to be a hero and that he was the king of hip hop and she was proud of him. She said she didn't want to let the culture down. Drew loved the culture and loved Russell too. Later on, Drew began to work for Clive Davis at Arista Records. She had a run of phenomenal hits. Aretha Franklin, A Rose Is Still a Rose, Whitney Houston, My Love Is Your Love. She even worked with Lauryn Hill and Carlos Santana. In 2000, Reid replaced Clive Davis as her boss at Arista Records. Drew says that Reid is one of the most important black producers and executives of the last 20 years. He discovered TLC, Toni Braxton, Usher and Outkast. Drew admired him. When she started to work with him, he invited her to the Four Seasons, and she thought that she could be flirtatious and play with her hair, but she realised that it would end one way, with her going to a hotel and listening to music. When she wouldn't go to the hotel, she said Reid became meaner and meaner, and this had consequences in her work life. Drew auditioned Kanye West, but Reid passed on Kanye and dressed her down in front of the whole A&R department. His pride and ego was bruised because Drew didn't sleep with him, And Reid brought all of this into the workplace and passed on talent like Kanye West. I do believe that everything happens for a reason though, because imagine if Reid signed Kanye, would have probably taken out his frustrations about Drew on Kanye and he wouldn't be where he is today. John Legend was the last artist Drew tried to sign back when he was known as John Stevens. She scheduled and auditioned with Reid, but Drew explains that he told her he didn't want to go and told senior staff not to go as well. As a result, she was the only one who watched John and his band, and she had to tell John that she couldn't sign him. After this, Drew gave up and quit. She cut herself off from the parts of herself she loved the most, creativity and music. She doesn't listen to any of the songs she made. Drew then went to Harvard Business School, met her husband and had children, but she wasn't fulfilling her dream or passion. Sheri explains how Mercedes Ladies were the first all-female DJ and rap group in the hip-hop industry. They had to be tough because they were going up against all males when performing, and that's how they met Russell Simmons. Sheri told him how she was looking for management and Russell wanted to get them in the studio. She then tells her story about her assault and rape. She put on a front and didn't talk about it, as that was the mentality in the hood. Sil Lai tells her story of how Russell came onto her despite explaining she had a boyfriend and she was happy. Watch the documentary to hear the details of her story. After she was raped, Sil Lai said how she didn't want to do anything where she would see people who were adjacent to Russell. And if you think about it, that's probably the entire creative industry. Everything from music to fashion to media, etc. Karen explains that by the mid-80s you had artists who introduced misogyny over dope beats, resulting in misogyny becoming palatable. I want to talk about this idea of palatability. Personally, I listen to music for the way it makes me feel and the way it sounds. And if it happens to have great lyrical content, it's like an added bonus for me. It's why I can listen to songs like Versace by Migos, where the word Versace is said over 100 times. The lyrical content isn't anything special, but because the beat is nice and I like the way Migos rap, the song is palatable and I enjoy it. When Karen talked about misogyny over dope beats, it really got me thinking about some of the music I listen to and why I continue to listen to it. The first song that came to my mind is Ain't No Fun If the Homies Can't Have None by Corrupt, Nate Dogg, Snoop Dogg and Warren G. When this song comes on my iPod, I'll be singing along and jamming to the chorus, and in the back of my mind I'll be thinking about how mad the song is and how mad the lyrical content is. That's the powerful and scary thing about music. You can be vibing to a song even though the lyrical content goes against your morals and beliefs. Ain't No Fun If the Homies Can't Have None is so catchy, but the lyrical content is disgraceful. Some of the lyrics go, I had a respect for you lady, but now I take it all back because you gave me all of your pussy and even licked my balls. When people say stuff like this, it makes me so angry. Why are you losing respect for the girl? You two were engaging in the sexual act, and I'm sure you weren't complaining during it. But after the act is over, you've lost respect for someone. It's very mad to me. Phrases like this are very damaging as well, because that loss of respect can lead to someone ghosting you, being disrespectful to you, or just seeing you as a sexual object. And imagine how that must feel, affect the way people view sex and the way people feel before and after sex. When I listen to music, I sometimes dip in and out of the song, and it's only now that I'm doing this video that I'm realizing this part of the song. It's just disgusting to me. Women are literally viewed as objects in this song, and it doesn't seem like the women are getting any pleasure from the act. We don't hear the woman's point of view. It's all about the guys, how they're benefiting from the different sexual encounters and how they're running trains on girls and how fun it is for them. If we heard the woman's perspective talking about how she enjoys it, it would be a different story. Women can do what they want and have agency over their bodies. If that's what you want to do, that's fine, but the song doesn't allow the audience to hear the woman's perspective, so it's completely misogynistic. I had to remove the song from my iPod, but I'm not gonna lie, there's still songs that I still listen to with crazy lyrical content and artists that I still listen to that I probably shouldn't, but removing that song was a start for me and I have a long way to go. Karen then goes on to talk about music videos in the 90s and how women looked alike. They were typically light-skinned and had long or wavy hair. She said it was clearly a statement against a large majority of black women and how we look. Kimberly Crenshaw, author of On Intersectionality, said that the things said about black women in certain songs is racist and how you're basically dancing to the ideology that was spread by defenders of slavery. When she said that, that really hit me, and what she's saying is completely right. Karen makes it clear that hip-hop didn't invent misogyny in music, and how every other music form has some level of misogyny. We then saw evidence of this in a documentary, and I thought the way they showed this was brilliant, and it educated me because I wasn't aware of this before. One of the lyrics that made me gasp was a clip they put in from Some Girls by the Rolling Stones. I couldn't believe it. You guys really need to watch the full documentary and listen to that song. I love that Drew acknowledged and spoke about her light privilege in the documentary. For example, she tells a story of when she was trying to get a cab, and Method Man and Redman would be like, "Everybody in," when Drew would call for a cab. Cabs would stop for her because she was light-skinned, but were less likely to stop for dark-skinned people or not stop at all. Shout out to the men who spoke out in this documentary. I think it's really important for men to speak up for women's survivors, as sexual assault and rape is not only a women's issue. We need everyone to speak up in order to help raise awareness and dismantle rape culture. We need more men to speak up. They are a vital part of dismantling rape culture, as they are the main perpetrators. Drew and her goddaughter watched a Hot 97 clip discussing the allegations, and I loved the way Peter Rosenberg spoke about the situation. On June 30th of this year, DJ, presenter and broadcaster Clara Amfo did a Q&A with Drew Dixon. It was a great Q&A and delved into some of the content discussed in the documentary. I will link the video in the description box. An interesting fact that wasn't mentioned in the documentary was that Drew dated D'Angelo before her Def Jam job. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please like, comment, subscribe and share. Please also look at the description box for more information, and if you need support on any of the topics discussed, there will be a link to help you. Thank you for watching. Bye.